Hello everyone, Mr. Ovi here. Welcome to today's talk show. So today we'll be looking at creative thinking. Now, the word or the term creative thinking is made up of the word creative and think. While I was preparing for this topic, I whipped out my dictionary and I looked at the meaning of these two words. So let me quickly read them to you. Thinking. This means, or this is to direct one's mind towards someone or something, or to use one's mind actively to form connected ideas. Take note of that. To use your mind to form connected ideas. Now, ideas are connected. Do you know that? Now, every one of us as human beings, we can think, but not every one of us can think creatively. Now, what does it mean to be creative? Let me read the definition to you. It says the use of the imagination. For you to be able to think creatively, your imagination plays a big role. Now, the imaginations or the thoughts processes or the thoughts you formed in your mind all these years is a product of your imagination. Your imagination, to a large extent, plays a role in your thought or your thinking process. Okay? For everyone out there who you see that does some form of creative thinking, they have been through a process. Creative thinking doesn't come easy, it doesn't come cheap. Not everyone can think creatively. What separates Dangote, for instance, from a normal man on the street who's doing his business on the street? It is creative thinking. Now, when you see the products of creative thinking, you know, yes, this thing came out of a creative thoughts. If you ask musicians, songwriters, now, I always say this: the most difficult part of a song is to write it. That is where the creativity comes from. Ask them and let them tell you that writing a song, is it such an easy task? Writing a song doesn't come easy. It comes from years and years of practice and practice and practice and development. Now, so I'm going to teach you 4 basic steps or 4 basic keys that can aid you in building up your ability to think. The first one, or let me just give you the 4. We'll be looking at we'll look at discipline, separation or solitude, repetition, knowledge, and then documentation. Let's quickly go off to discipline. Now, for you to be able to think creatively, you need to discipline yourself and your mind. Do you know that in our existence as human beings, there's a lot of noise around us? When I say noise, I don't mean noise that has to do with sound. Anything that distracts you is noise. Now, your mind has the ability to easily stray away from one idea to another. So you need to learn how to discipline yourself to stay focused on particular ideas. So when you're thinking, you stay focused. You discipline yourself. All right? So that's that's the first element of creative thinking. For you to be able to think creatively, you need to figure out an idea and then discipline yourself to stay focused on that idea. The next one we're going to look at is separation. Now, have you realized that when you're in an environment where it's so noisy, it's hard for you to really think properly and concentrate? For you to think properly, creatively think, you need to separate yourself from the crowd, from the noise. You need to be all alone by yourself. All right? So that's it. For you to be creative in your ideas, please learn to separate yourself. Now, you've heard of the word meditation, right? When a man meditates upon a thing, he gets ideas, he gets inspiration from meditation. What is meditation? Meditation simply means thinking. And you cannot meditate when there is noise around you. You need to go to a separate place. That is what I meant by solitude. Go to a separate place. Separate yourself, just you. Then you can think properly. And the next one is repetition. When human beings do things over and over and over and over, it becomes a part of them. When you push yourself to think creatively over time, it will become a part of you. And that will become like a habit, second to none to you. When you sit down and you think creatively. When some people open up their mouths to speak, the words that come out of their mouth, when you listen, you'll be like, these words are powerful. The words make impact, they change lives. That's because these people, they speak creatively. They have taken out time to be creative in their thought process. All right? Now, so keep doing what you're supposed to do. You know, don't put your brain to sleep. Let your brain always be active. From the definition we saw, it says being active, always putting your brain to work, and doing that consistently, you build your ability to think creatively. Now, you see our body is made up of muscles, right? Muscles. Now, how do we develop our muscles? By doing exercise. Now, we can also develop our brain capacity, our capacity to think creatively by what? Developing our brain. How do we develop our brains? By studying and thinking. Studying and thinking. That then builds your mental capacity so much. All right. Now the next one, I'm going to try to be fast because of time. The next one we're going to look at is knowledge. Now, do you know that when you study, it propels your thinking ability? People who think deep, they are people who study. Go and check out philosophers, scientists, astronomers, doctors, lawyers, successful ones, businessmen. These people spend time to study. Do you know that when you're reading and you're studying, that's when your thinking capacity is increased? When you pick up a book to read, while you're reading it, your mind is going through a lot of things. You're exercising your mind. You're exercising your thought process. When I first got wind of the man called Ben Carson, I decided to take a deep look into Ben Carson's life. I studied his books. Every time I'm studying a book of Ben Carson, my brain goes far. It takes me to places I've never been, places I've never even dreamt of being. I see myself there. My thinking becomes very high at that point in time. A lot of the principles that he brings out, my brain begins to imagine them. I see them like I'm in that experience. Get Ben Carson's book about thoughts. You will be so amazed and blessed. Get his book about Think Big, the big picture. That was the experience for me. So every time you're reading, your thinking your thinking ability is being exercised. Like I said earlier, every one of us can think, but not every one of us can think creatively. You have to learn to think creatively. It doesn't come on a platter of gold. You have to exercise yourself, practice it. Now, the last one, let me just add to this, that you cannot be creative in a certain area except you have some knowledge in that particular area. Okay, so if there is a problem, for instance, in the area of medicine, only someone who has studied medicine to some extent and has knowledge in that area will be able to come out with something creative in that field so as to solve that problem. Look at mathematics, for instance. If there is a problem to solve, someone who doesn't have the basic knowledge of algebra, addition, subtraction, BODMAS and all that cannot creatively solve mathematical problems, cannot creatively think in order to solve such problems. Now go and ask art students. A lot of them will run away from maths class because they can't creatively think in that area because they do not have the knowledge. So thinking creatively has a lot to do with knowledge, with study. The more you study, you expand your knowledge base, and the more of expansion you have in your knowledge base, the more you are able to think creatively. Think about this thing I'm telling you. It's for real. Now the last one here is documentation. Now, a lot of the time ideas come to us as human beings, but do you know what? One thing about ideas that come in such way, ideas that can ignite and light up the world, sometimes do not last in our memory. They come, they stay for a short while, and they disappear. Go and ask the songwriter, ask the musician. Now, when a musician is by himself and then he gets a melody or a rhythm in his head, what do you think? What do you see him do? The next thing, he's rushing for his phone or rushing for a paper to write it down. Why? Because he knows that within a short time, this idea will fly out. Sometimes in 5 minutes, it's gone. So he wants to make sure that he documents it by recording it or writing it so that it stays. All right. So people, for you to be able to think creatively, whatever you thought out or whatever idea has come to you, you must learn to write them down. Even the Bible says it. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 2. Write the vision, make it plain. That's a vision God has given to you. It's an idea. A lot of times people ask God for blessings. God bless me. But when God blesses you, He most times blesses your spirit. He drops ideas in your spirits. Those are the blessings that God gives. The ideas come to you in your thought process, in your mind. Now, Like I said one of the key factors of becoming a creative thinker is to be disciplined. If you're not disciplined enough in your mind and in your thinking process, ideas that God will give to you, a lot of times you may lose them. That's why you have to stay focused, stay focused, stay focused, stay focused. So my people, I have touched on 5 key factors or elements that can help you become a better creative thinker. Number 1, we talked about discipline. Number 2, we talked about separation or solitude. Number 3, we talked about repetition. And number 4, we talked about knowledge. And number 5, we talked about documentation. Stick to these 5 things. There are more, but I just brought out these 5 basic ones. There are others you can think about, but if you can implement these 5 steps or 5 factors or 5 elements, it will make you a better creative thinker. Remember, every one of us on earth, we can think, but not all of us can think creatively. Alright? The creative thinker is the one who is able to bring solutions to problems. The creative thinker is the one who's able to bring answers, birth ideas that never existed. That's a creative thinker. A creative thinker adds value to lives. A creative thinker causes impact. Now, look at this scenario. Put a glass of water filled halfway on a table. 2 persons will come and view it from different perspectives. One will say the cup is half full, the other will say the cup is half empty. 2 people saying the same thing but from different perspectives. One is being pessimistic, the other is being optimistic. It's all a product of the mind. Now, before battles are won or lost here on earth, they are first of all won or lost in your mind. That's why your mind is a battlefield. You got to learn to protect it. What goes in, you have to learn it. Because what goes into your mind in the long run will form your thought process, your thinking process, the way you think. So for instance, a girl who grows up in a place where people are smoking and there's prostitution around will most probably end up thinking thoughts of prostitution all the time. While another girl who grows up in an era where people are always going out to get things done and getting jobs and creating jobs will most probably end up creating jobs. Her mind and her thought process will be geared in that direction. So people, that's the time where separation will have to come in. I talked about separation. It's essential for us to separate ourselves. Sometimes the Bible says there is a time for everything. A time to die, a time to live, a time to be born, a time to create, a time to destroy, and so on. Now, there is a time where you need to create things from your mind. Now, with each day that passes, ideas are loaded into our minds, into our thoughts. What do we do with those ideas? Do we stay disciplined enough and actualize those ideas, or we just throw them? Now, let me shock you a little bit. Ideas can either be positive or negative. And guess what? Whether they're negative or positive, they have the same capacity to produce results. They have the same potency. Take an armed robber, for instance. When armed robbers want to go and rob a bank, what do? They sit down to think creatively. Although it is in a negative way, but it is a thought all the same, and it's creative. And in the end, what does it do for them? It gives them results. The sad thing is, these results end up hurting people. But they put in a lot of energy into it to actualize their plan. So, thinking can either be positive or negative. Take a prostitute. A prostitute takes time to think about his business and how she's going to implement whatever it is that she wants to do. And it works for them, although in a negative way. So today you have to make up your mind if you're going to be thinking positively or negatively in a creative way. It's up to you, but I encourage you to take the positive way of thinking creatively, because it will help you in the long run. Do you know there is a satisfaction you get when you think positively and your thought is a solution to someone's problem? Do you know you get fulfilled? There's nothing as good as that sense of fulfillment. Nothing can ever buy that. Money cannot buy it. Gold cannot buy it. Ruby cannot buy it. So my people, choose life. Choose positivity. Choose creative thinking. Every one of us can think, but not all of us can think creatively. One thing that separates us from animals and the other species of living creatures is our ability to think. And not just to think, but to think creatively. Now, you'll see people being faced with the same situation. Some are making it out of the situation, while some are dying in it. What's the difference? Is their creative thoughts, the ability to think their way out of the problems. God gave us that tool, that gift, that ability to think for us to be able to help ourselves out of situations. You need it. It will help you in the long run. Bet me, it will help you in the long run. So develop your creative ability. Do it repeatedly over time. Alright? Discipline yourself. Separate yourself when there is need to. Now, when I say separate yourself, it doesn't mean you should separate yourself all the time from people. There is a time to be with people, and there is a time where you need to seclude yourself from people so you can get ideas. Do you know that the kind of decisions you will make when you are with people is quite different from the kind of decision you will make when you're alone thinking? People have made decisions that made them commit murder because they were thinking about what the other person close to them or around would say. If I don't do this, they will say I'm a weak man. But if you were alone, your conscience will probably tutor you more and tell you, take it easy. So there's a lot of good that it does to you when you are separated from the crowd sometimes. And then there are times where you will need the crowd, where you need to think and dialogue with people and come up with better solutions. Okay? So I do hope that this video has blessed you in some way. Please click the like button, drop a comment in the comment section below, share this video, and don't forget to click the bell notification icon just below this video, and also click the subscription icon if you've never subscribed to this channel before. Thank you, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.